Hi everyone, it's Adrian Leah. I wanted to do a reading for tonight. The plans for the type of reading changed. I'm using the Universal Folk Tarot. It's the deck that I would say was a little misplaced because I was rushing to work and leaving the hotel room, and when I got to my car, I was putting stuff in the passenger seat and stuff dropped out of my bag onto the ground, and this was a deck that dropped when I was putting stuff into my car. So I didn't pick the deck up, and luckily it was returned to the front desk of the hotel, so I was able to retrieve it. So I'm super happy about that. When I was looking yesterday, I saw this baby rabbit that was in the parking lot, and it's not the first time a rabbit has shown up. I've had on a couple of occasions a rabbit show as a sign for me, and that's the picture that I'll post for this reading. So for this video, it's going to be another specific message video because of the visions that I was seeing, and that is the reason why the reading is changing up a little bit, because I also feel like the deck was misplaced because I was meant to use other decks for the reading I did yesterday, and that was another type of message that I was relaying. But today, I'm 2 minutes in, or more than 2 minutes in, I had a lot of spirits come to me today. More of like energies coming and going too, and they were pointing, and that's one of the parts of the reading that I get from the Eight of Swords, where you see that the eye almost feels like it's forcing itself to open, because it's like the spirits were saying, like, you need to open your eyes. And they were pointing, and I was like, where are you pointing to? Because they were multiple spirits were doing that. And when I was in the kitchen, I was, doing a couple things, and it was like my vision was of another place, and then there was, I would say, an angelic being behind me. When I was there, as I was seeing myself in another place, and even the past couple of days, I was seeing fire, like I was being surrounded by fire, and even this vision too, there was just so much fire, and I was like, where is this fire coming from, and where is this? Because this is a vision of Earth. It's not a vision of another place or places that it could have been. So I was also needing to listen, because the first card that came out is the King of Pentacles, and the King of Pentacles has the horns. I was getting it's like needing to listen, and even looking at like a Q-tip and like opening your ears and seeing things too, for what the reality is. Like, because I was also saying like the Archangel Michael prayer, and I was seeing the vision of again of the angels with the sparks and the sparks of light, and they were like getting lifted up. Also, it looked like I wanted to say prisoners, but it's not prisoners in the sort of going to jail for a crime. It's kind of, it is like prisoners, like they're being taken and in a tortured way. And then there are two visions of both figures and their hands, like it's some way were immobilized, because the other day I was getting clipped wings. And then having to do with electricity, with I was just really focused on the plugs of the TVA. I know, like looking at specific things and just feeling like it means something. And I might touch up on a couple of things when I go throughout the reading. But those were some of the messages. And even, I'm sorry, like people having maybe, I'm sorry, it's not super common like here, but is it like shawls on your head, or but they were out in an outdoor environment and like kind of protecting themselves from like external environments, but just a lot of fire. I really feel like it affected somehow like the foundation, or like something that had to do with the electricity, or something important to make it so it had to do with communication, because I was also getting a lot of bird energy messages, because I was hearing, like bird calls, like in the morning when you hear those, the different birds sing, and even the phone, like how it like picks up dust, and that's how it affected it. So that might be the struggle with the Knight of Swords, even though that's the present, and the obstacle card is the Page of Cups, and the Page of Cups being the tea leaf reader. I feel like those go hand in hand, because the Knight of Swords isn't one that is much of a, I suppose in a way it's like more of the Knight of Swords' own pace, but in terms of like taking it a step at a time, or maybe going by a manual, or going by instructions, or information that another person may give or say. It's not necessarily something that the Knight of Swords is keen on doing. Not like they don't care. I mean, it's on an individual basis, but it's also one where it's the energy is also linked to Gemini. I know I already did a Gemini reading, but just to call out the different signs, that there's just so much going on in the mind and outside the mind with Gemini, as well as the other air signs, where the well, I say where because my sun sign is Libra, the humans of the zodiac, the only signs that don't have animals that have like some type of representation with that. So and it just came up so quickly as like one hand knows what the other hand is doing, because Gemini is also like the sign of twins, and it goes hand in hand. And sometimes with those energies though, it's interesting because even though there is in a sense a duality with that, there's also, I've heard, where one likes to like it's like a game, it's like sports, and trying to win. There is that sense of needing to accomplish those things and needing to see those types of results within yourself, and then having maybe the external environment see that too. So with the ghost energy that I have said in different videos about the circle of friends, I feel like it does link with that. And I was thinking about the circle of friends too, those types of readings. And it's interesting because when I was thinking about going into it, I saw a vision of, like, I don't know if this is just in America, but like AA meetings, and they're just, like, you go around. It doesn't necessarily need to be a circle, or like if you go to like some type of group setting where someone has to speak and then another person has to speak, that might be an important thing, because with the Knight of Swords and the Page of Cups as the present and as the obstacle, but I feel like they go together. There's the Four of Swords with the King of Pentacles, and it kind of needs to switch, and switch quickly, because with this one, with the Four of Swords specifically, it's one where it's like, I think about like the talking stick, and the talking stick generally associated with maybe like the Sioux clan, or I'm sorry, the Sioux tribe, I'm so sorry, in the Native American culture, and that's what I can recall. And of course, for anybody who is aware of the Native American culture, might want to think about like the other tribes that might be associated with that too. But the concept of, if you have the stick, you're talking, and if you don't have the stick, you're listening. Something that the Knight of Swords with the Page of Cups, it is more of a practice that is going on right now in order to get either to the Queen of Swords or King of Swords, or even the King of Pentacles, because you're jumping to another suit in here. Still one of the court cards though, again, in another suit. With the Page of Swords, it is one where if you don't have the stick, you're not talking. You need to listen. And I feel like that's what the spirits are like. You need to listen. Because so far you're kind of all up in your head, and it's kind of all over the place. There's this one interpretation of the Knight of Swords, which is from the Tarot of the She, a she being a high race of the Fae, where it's like a card of freedom, and it's like a card that is really free-flowing thoughts, and it doesn't really have a set pace. It doesn't have a set routine or regimen. It's really going with the beat of your own drum type of energy, which is completely okay in that regard of, individuality, but there's also the aspect of needing to appease different parties, because you also have the Queen of Cups and the King of Cups here. And I was running out of space in this area, but also trying to make something out of nothing, because you have in between the Seven of Cups the Conjurer, and at the top are mushrooms. And one can say that since it's in that position, it reminds me of maybe like Lion's Mane, that type of brand, where it really has such a neurological response to it, which is a little mixed in with that because the cups linking to water, and then I feel like neurological health linking more to the swords with the mental capacity. But with mushrooms, they like damp conditions in general, if we're just generally talking about mushrooms. And they, in that regard, that type of soil, they can feed off of the decay. And not saying in that sense, but again, we're trying to build something out of nothing, to try to sprout something as quickly as a mushroom can sprout. Because one day a mushroom's there, one day a mushroom isn't there, and one day a mushroom just like randomly appears. Also linking to a toadstool, like if you're talking about more of fairy type of lore or symbolism, if you will. Also with toads, ones that have the ability to be land beings but go to the water when they need to, and then frogs tend to go to the water more often than not. And toadstools also looking like they protect you from the rain, even though those types of conditions help them grow. So that is a little bit of a paradox too. But as I was saying with appeasing the different parties, you have, this is going to be a little bit to upload on my phone, so I'm not trying to speed it too much because I want to get the messages that I want to get out, but I also want it to upload on my phone too. You have the Ace of Wands, the Visionary, and again with creating something out of nothing, because the Ace is one and that's the beginning, and creation can link to the Ace of Wands because that's where the drive comes from. That's where you really try to make your dreams into reality. It's that first step and that spark of light that ignites it. Not only do you have the Ace of Wands, you have the Ace of Swords up there too, which is in the future energy, which is a good energy to have in the future when you're thinking about having new beginnings. And it's like a completely new beginning because you have the Fool card, which is a card that actually clarifies the Three of Swords and the Two of Wands. And with that, it kind of faces reality. Reality hits with the Three of Swords. It's not exactly something that, it's not like you don't want to hear it. And I feel like as you get more experience with hearing different types of news, it doesn't faze you as much as it used to. And I feel like that's like that in healthcare too, or at least like when you're in a job for a while, and certain things, like you either, well, I would say you know what to do in those situations when those things happen, and you can get over those humps. The last reading I was talking about the secret, and one of those things, like to not dwell on certain things that you don't want. Again, when you're trying to build your future, it's good to focus on things that you'd want to have, and not saying that you're avoiding responsibility. Of course, focus on the things that you need to focus on that may not be the happiest or the most fun to focus on when you need to, of course, and maybe when you don't need to, so you can take it one manageable step at a time, as I mentioned. But There's also the aspect of having a healthy mindset and to be able to maintain it, and the steadiness of moving forward while healing, because especially when you get older, you rarely get downtime to just sit and heal, and it kind of just keeps going and going and going, as much as we don't want to say that. With the Two of Wands is also like a blueprint card, and it's also a building card that comes from the Ace of Wands, because once you figure out what you want to make into reality, that's when you start the planning with the Two of Wands of how you want it to be all set. I would definitely be careful about that too, on where you're gonna do it, how you're gonna do it, and if there is a person in mind that you're doing that with, because it's good to prepare on your downtime. I will say that now. Let me try to get to the other cards. Yeah, the Four of Pentacles with the Justice card, the Five of Wands, and the Strength card. I'll just read those together because those came out together when I pulled them out. So with the Four of Pentacles, it kind of feels like holding on to things. And holding on to things in this regard, it kind of feels like a bank and a savings. And preparing for justice of what may or may not happen, whether things go in your favor or things don't go according to plan. I say this in the lab when I train people. If something doesn't go exactly the way that you're expecting it to go, make sure you know what to do when that happens. I guess one thing, like, in this regard, I guess, since I mentioned it, you're gonna have to restart it anyway. But knowing when to add certain chemicals to certain bases, maybe if you're making something with, I don't know, a purified water or something that's like that you need to mix in water, you're gonna want something that actually dissolves in water. Say you want to add lidocaine, and you're thinking, okay, well, how am I going to add lidocaine? Am I going to add the lidocaine that I add to creams, or another base that or a gel, I would say, actually? Or am I going to add a lidocaine that maybe has a base like hydrochloride so it actually can dissolve in it? Because if you add regular lidocaine to water, it's just gonna it's basically going to look like not even little suds. It's going to look like a bunch of white things that are in your water. And the more that you try to mix it, the more that they show up, because they're not like mixing together. It's kind of like water and oil. To be honest, it looks worse than that. Just to have a visual. For that, you're going to have to start over. But another example, if you need to try to adjust something, which isn't coming to mind right now, but I'll have to come back to that. But I wanted to say it just in case. With the Five of Wands and the Strength card, the Five of Wands, again, when something, it kind of feels like a little bump in the road, or it kind of feels like maybe training, and you don't exactly win in the training. And I feel called to say this, sometimes in order for us to win, we have to lose. So what is worth keeping, and what is worth, saying that it did its due diligence, and then I can move forward with it. So you also have with the Strength card too, of when something doesn't go according to plan, to really focus on how things can be fixed, as I was saying, because when we focus on things that we haven't done the way that we wanted them to do, it could almost be a domino effect, or like the butterfly effect, where, I hope I'm saying that in the correct terms, where one mistake happens and then all of a sudden you make 9 mistakes after that because you're so fixated on, wow, this happened, and it just feels like everything goes wrong after that, until maybe an hour later where you're calming your mind down and actually getting back on your horse and continuing on with the lesson, or continuing on with the training or the purpose. This kind of feels like a little bit of training, but it is on the grander scale for something greater with the Justice card and the Strength card, because those are part of the major arcana. The Fool card with a new way of being, a new way of life, and seeing the companion or the life that you, I'm sorry, I don't know why I did that, the way that you want to live, it comes along. That's part of the major arcana. And this seems like small things that can add up. So those lessons that you've had, you're finally taking it into the battlefield of life, whether that's in it could be figuratively, it could be literally, it could be both. So then for how to overcome the obstacle, you have the 8 of Wands, with the 2 of Swords being the overall energy for the reading. And it's interesting because it has Ariel, and I don't think it has a reference to the movie, but of like the Little Mermaid, but it is reminiscent of like the toad energy, or of like, in the best way, of going to the water when you need to. So the 2 of Swords, with these energies, the long hair stands out in a way where, even with the horns, because they also represent getting messages from above, it's more of like an enlightening or a higher power type of mentality, where you're seeing things with fresh eyes, seeing things through the eyes of the divine type of energy. And it can really add up because you're seeing in different ways that you haven't seen before. And I feel like that's something to take in mind, where you were doing something maybe more in the literal sense, maybe more of where you were used to seeing it in one way, but now you have to, again, use your senses, or use different senses or alternatives to see things clearly, with, again, linking to the 8 of Swords. You also have the 6 of Pentacles there too, where the little things that come along are a long way. The little things that come along can build up, and I feel like that links with the 4 of Pentacles, the 6 of Pentacles, the 4 of Pentacles, and even the 8 of Swords, where these messages, these things or gifts that are given to you, because again, Pentacles are part of the sign or element of Earth, and coins and wheels and other decks that I have. something more in the tangible sense, that we're given these tools and how are we using them now. And one of the things that I have said in multiple videos, that your mind is a powerful tool. So it's good to really be consistent with it and to train it and to discipline it and to help you, well, help your mind help you. It's all the same. When we think about maybe Eastern medicine compared to Western medicine, the Eastern medicine in general looks at the body as a whole rather than one eye ailment at a time, which is generally what Western medicine can do, because one system can link to another system, one eye ailment can link to something else, one body part can link to another body part, even if it's on the other side of the body. And homeostasis to maintain balance in the body. So in the past, you have the Queen of Pentacles. So you have counterparts here. You have the King of Cups, the Queen of Cups, and the King of Pentacles and the Queen of Pentacles. So now it's moving up if we're just thinking about the Page, Knight, Queen, and King. So this feels like it is a type of elevation, and it does feel like it does it in a steadier pace, or a pace that we're not used to, or that's not our pace necessarily. Because again, in the beginning you had the Knight of Swords. Now you're working with the King of Pentacles and Queen of Pentacles, and you're working with another element, which is the Cups, which is water and earth, and swords being air. So I was still thinking about another example of what you can do to modify it, but honestly, the main one that I'm thinking about right now is because it's one of the more popular ones, is like, making ketamine compounds. Ketamine does have a history. Can't be considered a street drug, but honestly, it's not something that is super valuable on the black market if we're thinking realistically about it. Also was used as a horse tranquilizer, but when you're QSing, or you're making your compounds to the amount that's needed, and you're using one of the ingredients, say your creams or your purified water, maybe a preserved water that you add, something to make it a preserved water, like a methylparaben or a propylparaben, then you'll QS with that ingredient to make it maybe 30 milliliters that you need, the 300 milliliters that you need, whatever the amount that is needed for your compound. So just to say, you estimated low, and low is, it's not a bad thing. Say you wanted like 300 and you already needed to put X amount of ketamine in there, and then you kind of aimed low for the amount that you needed to QS for. Even though QS, like, you're looking at it in a way where you're seeing how much you're feeling, but just to say that maybe you've done it before and you already know just about how much to QS, and you kind of have a number up in your head. You just add more, and that could be a small example that's coming to me. I'm sorry, but I'm sure that maybe after this video I'll think of other things. So thank you guys so much for watching. I went through all the cards. I'll see you in another video. Bye.